there's a real focus in Israeli society, a great part of Israeli society on the hostages. That's been a point of contention between Netanyahu and his coalition. So this is something that he's vulnerable on. But there are a lot of Israelis who really want those hostages back, and he's feeling the pressure. But I don't think he's going to. So far, he's showing no signs of caving in. He still has this plan to occupy Gaza City. I think the worry is that the occupation of Gaza City will lead to the deaths of more hostages. And that's quite possible. Of course, these protesters, unfortunately, don't seem to be concerned about they're very concerned about the 25 Israeli prisoners of war, but they're not concerned about thousands, tens of thousands and even you could say hundreds of thousands of Palestinian lives that will be endangered by this operation.
Yeah, it's when we talk about Israeli society, something that sticks out to me is just really how powerful the tribe mentality is in Israel. That there will be such strong protests to get these 25 hostages back or prisoners of war back. Most of them are IDF soldiers, but they have no concern for the people that are not part of their tribe, the non-Jews. It's so strange to me that it's that strong. It's like, you don't know, most of these people out protesting, they have no personal connection to these hostages or these prisoners of war in Gaza. They don't know them personally. They don't know the children in Gaza, but they will protest and fight and everything just for these people that were, many of them were IDF soldiers that were in charge of enclosing Gaza, keeping it at the concentration camp that it is. And they will be very upset and protest about that, but they have no feeling for these children, all these people that are starving to death, that are dying. It's very strange. I just, having a tribe, I think, is important, but I've never seen it so extreme. And I think that's
Right.
it is unique, I feel, with the Jewish people. It is it's a strong drive. It's just like that overrides everything. That idea of just, we back our tribe no matter what, and screw everybody else. We don't care.
Yeah, well, it is. I think there clearly is an ideology that is developed in Israel. I think, and I'm sure it has deeper historical roots, but I'm not the person to really to. I don't have a full understanding. I'll just put that. But clearly, in ever since the launch of the Zionist project, I think the Israeli society, initially it was just certain aspects of Jewish society, but now we're talking about Jewish Israeli society. It's been put on this trajectory that does value, Jewish lives. To say, more than other lives, it's not really saying much, because I think you could say that about any tribe or any people in the world. I think that's natural. It's like you first, you're more concerned with your family members, and then by extension, your nation. But there is something that goes way beyond this, where clearly for many, many Jewish Israelis, the lives of other people just actually don't count for anything. I mean, that's how else can you explain it? You're talking about these massive protests for 25. So, and every day, many more than that are killed, in the most horrible manner. Innocent people are killed, people trying to obtain aid to save their starving families, children who are just, have been targeted by a sniper or whatever. This is something that happens every single day in Gaza, and it's happened for the last, we're getting close to 700 days now, well over 600 days. And it seems, this is not just a thought or an impression. This is what the polling shows. Okay, something like 75% apparently of Israeli society wants to see these hostages brought home. But then it also, on the other hand, we get approximately 80% just really don't care about starvation in Palestine. It doesn't matter to them. That's what they tell the pollsters. And we've seen it. It's just there is this complete disregard of other lives, and that's the way that Israel has treated its neighbors. It's just we've talked about it. I don't really need to go into detail. It's I'm not going to put it at the feet of Judaism because I just don't know enough about it, and I think it's a mistake to do that without a real understanding. I know I hear people make comments about
For sure.
Christianity. They for example, you look at Christian Zionism, and you say Christians are just crazy and they want to kill too, because unfortunately a large number of Christians are going down the same road. I don't know that that this is something that's just symptomatic of Judaism, but it certainly is symptomatic of Zionism. This is, it is a project that clearly, puts more than just puts more value on Jewish lives, but it really does. It's part of, like, central to the thing. It is a form of supremacism, of ethnic supremacism, that has become intensified over the years. That was always, it was always there, that ethnic supremacism, and now it's become, taken very, very ugly and extreme form.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was wanting to explore a bit, is how does that ethnic supremacism take root and really become so extreme like it did in Israel? Because you have so many nations around the world that are homogenous. We have you go to Japan, spend time in East Asia, you go to Japan, they're all Japanese. You go to Korea, they're Korean. Sure, you're always a foreigner. You're never really assimilated in society. Even me living in China for 10 years, but you never feel that the Chinese or the Japanese or the Koreans have any of this. You don't see this ethno supremacism. You don't feel like, even though they're all one people, they don't have this. You don't feel that at all. It's not there. So
Right.
I don't know, why is it. It's scary. Where does that come from? Where does that root, this idea that, you're better and you can treat other humans that are not part of your tribe as just subhuman? That's
Right.
just, that's
Well,
not an okay ideology. That shouldn't be,
right.
it could be allowed in society. You think that just through societal evolution, that would have been pushed out, that type of thinking, because you don't see it sprouting up in these other
Yeah.
countries. I mean, in these other nations,
Right.
there's always different ethnic minorities or visitors or whatever, and they're treated fine
Right. Well,
for the
of
most
course,
part.
it's
I mean,
important to look at, like, the Japanese, because I think what you say about them is generally true. Now, there is I think,
World War
even now,
II.
kind of a
Okay.
dark side of Japanese society, but but in general, right, the Japanese have adopted a completely different attitude vis-a-vis other people. They're very concerned about maintaining their Japaneseness, but they're trying to be, civilized members of the Society of Nations, and so they have abandoned the pursuit of ethno supremacy. But there was, of course, a time, where they very much pursued that policy, with horrific results in places like China and Korea. So it shows that these political projects, they can arise in different contexts, and but they can be defeated. It eventually was defeated in Japan, but it just has risen in Israel, and there are various. Again, I think you have to. Part of the problem is the U.S. support for these supreme, for the extremist elements within Israel. If the U.S. didn't continually support Israel, regardless of what it did, if it actually pressured, them, the Israelis to make a deal with the Palestinians, let's say back after the Six-Day War, for example, I think they would have had no choice, to do it. And also, it's just that those extremist elements, which were, they were always there, but they were kind of lurking in the background, in the fringes of Israeli society in the past. They would have remained there in the fringes, but they were empowered by the unconditional support from the U.S. It's just like over time, they developed a sense of impunity, and within Israeli society, began to see, like, what are we afraid of? It's just like, um, it seems like the people who are are advocating moderation with Israel, are constantly, when push comes to shove, they're warning against the dangers of extremism, but then the extremists make a move and they're supported by the Americans. They launch an invasion and the Americans are with them. It empowers the extremists. And over time, that has become, they have become, rather than a fringe, the dominant force within Israeli society. Again,
So we
I don't
created
think
this
it would have been
monster.
possible without the American role.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. So you think that in large part we created this monster and our
Well,
continued
I wouldn't say
support.
yeah. Well, yeah, okay. To create it, they're there, but we've empowered them. They were always there, and by backing them, by never, saying no, we have empowered them. We've fed the monster.
And
We didn't create the monster, but we fed it, and it's become, now it's,
yeah, we've made it what it is today. I mean,
yeah,
as you think about, just even the idea of ethnosupremacism, I'm sure there was always a bit of that. Just the founding of Israel is there, there is a bit of ethnosupremacism in there just from the beginning.
right,
But just think about the U.S. continual support, especially when Christian Zionists, and you have people like Lindsey Graham saying, if you pull the plug on Israel, then God's going to pull the plug on us. It's like, we
yeah,
are telling them that you're God's chosen people.
right,
We're praying for you. We get these things in the mail. Are you going to
right,
pray for Israel? Go donate $10 to help Israel to achieve God's vision. And so America is feeding that
hmm,
that whole notion of supremacism, that you guys are God's chosen people. It's
right,
your duty or your
right,
biblical right to go and
right,
kill these people and take their land. Like, it's
right,
so much of it is our fault. Like, if we
right,
didn't have, but I mean, I know that in a large part though, that Christian Zionist movement was created by, it was not would say created. I know Christian
yeah,
Zionism predates actual
right,
Zionism, but it was things, I think, fostered in many ways by
yeah,
the Zionists. Say, hey, this is great.
yeah,
Let's put in, let's get the Schofield Bible out there. Let's let them start worshiping us.
yeah,
We are the
right.
Jews. It's sick. It's
Well,
pathetic
yeah.
that we did this.
Right. Well, I think again, it is important to point out, as you did, just that Christian Zionism predates Zionism, and I think during the first several decades of Christian Zionism, there actually isn't really any evidence, or very very little evidence of uh, of any sort of significant Jewish support for it. I think that comes more recently. Now, there's no question, but that people like Netanyahu and all his allies and supporters, both within Israel and the U.S., see Christian Zionism as a very useful force, and they support it, and they feed it. But it's something, again, they didn't create, but they've kind of, we're looking at sort of the mirror image of what the U.S. did in Israel. They're helping to feed the beast within the U.S. Um,
I
yeah, no,
hope, I feel like Christian Zionism is collapsing in the United States. I hope I'm right. I feel like people like Tucker Carlson are really helping with that,
yeah,
because he's always coming at it as as a Christian, and he's interviewing Christians in Palestine. And another great person is actually Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't think
oh yeah,
many people had Marjorie Taylor Greene
yeah,
as the most humane congresswoman, the
yeah,
one that would actually be. She is really out there, and she was sharing
yeah,
videos on her ex of babies that have been injured from the shrapnel and from the bombs, and just horrific stuff, and just saying how
yeah,
just evil. It's crazy that
sure,
this is a brave position to take
yeah,
for our politicians, to call out, seeing a baby obliterated. I saw a video of a little girl carrying water, trying to get family, just drone strike, intentionally, just like, no, we come on, guys. This is, can we get any more black and white on good
yeah,
versus evil? Like, this is
right,
evil. This is
right,
evil. We have to stand up and speak about it, speak out against it. And so few of our politicians. But Marjorie Taylor
yeah,
Greene is actually one of those surprise ones,
yeah,
and
yeah,
she's getting a lot of support from all sides, because people are human, and when we say that,
right,
yes, thank you for some politician, some political leader to stand up and say condemn what is obviously wrong, what is obviously evil. And you know, there are more and more things just breaking through. I don't know if you saw the story. There was this, I think that guy name was Tom Alexandrovich or something like this. He's the executive director of like cybersecurity for Israel on Netanyahu's cabinet. And he was in Vegas for something, you know, the Israelis come here all the time, do things. And he was arrested in a pedophile sting because he was trying to have sex with some underage girl. And, you know, it was a FBI agent. And then he gets arrested for it. There's police documents. And then on behalf of the Trump administration, he is released and sent back to Israel. You know, and like, okay, no problem. And of course, no mainstream media and here we're talking about it. But, you know, you throw a sandwich at a police officer because they're arresting somebody that is protesting against the genocide in Gaza, or you're you know, Pam Bondi saying, you know, I'm on it with Randy Fine because some college student is upset with some arguing with some Zionist or something like this. They're all over that. But here you have an Israeli, you know, pedophile here trying to rape American children, and he gets arrested for it, and then you just let him go. Like it's just getting to the point where people are just like, it's just a farce. What sick country is this? Who's in charge? And we start to know the answer.
Well, it has to be pointed out that Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, highlighted that story and denounced.
Yeah, she did.
Right. So again, you know, kudos to her. Yeah, no, it's shameful. And at the same time, you know, the Trump administration has now banned or, you know, prevented the medical visas to sick Gazan or, you know, wounded, dying Gazan children into the U.S. And that was celebrated by Randy Fine, you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's so amazing that we, you know, when we're the ones, it's our bombs that are doing this to these kids. And then we won't even, you know, after we blow them up, we won't even put them back together. It's it's really out of control. This is, you know, the Ukraine war is huge, and I know it is completely changed geopolitics, the balance of power, the entrance in the multipolar world. This is hugely significant. But I just feel like what's happening in Gaza is just, it's even bigger, because that moral stain on the West, that's something that will last forever. This is something that will be in our history books, just like the Germans were with World War II. We do it. This is our chapter, guys. This is it. Right. You know, we are complicit in genocide, the most documented public genocide of all time.
Right.
That's just openly stated by politicians in Israel. They just openly state that this is their plan. And we're somehow still making excuses almost 2 years later.
Very true.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, anything you want to add, Dad? We can end it here.
Okay. Yeah, I think that this is a good place to end. The next time we communicate, you know, if everything works out, I'll be in Istanbul, just for a day, basically. You know, a little more than a day.
Okay.
But I should be in Istanbul on Wednesday.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we'll be flexible with your schedule, and then you'll be back to the U.S. It'll be nice to have you back here again. It's you know, not having the grandparents, you know, you and Mom around to help with the little kids. You know, it's starting to get a little. Like, we're doing fine. Okay. We're doing fine, but it'll be nice to drop them off with you guys for a little bit.
Yeah, we miss them.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Dad. Well, have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you when you're in Istanbul.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.